Hi, everybody. Dave Duncan. I'm the director of the State EMS Authority. And I'd like to thank everyone for the opportunity to speak here today at the State of the State California STEMI System of Care virtual conference. I have no disclosures to share. I want to dive right in and talk a little about STEMI, and then we'll get into a little more EMSA-centric stuff. STEMI stands, of course, for ST elevation myocardial infarction. We know all heart attacks are bad. I don't want one. You don't want one, but we really don't want a STEMI. STEMIs are frequently lethal and have a much higher association with disability, et cetera. They are also particularly time sensitive. That's really where the term time is muscle came from. Early recognition and treatment are absolutely key. And this helps prevent both permanent heart damage, disability, and death. An interesting perspective, clear back from 1882, this Dr. Conheim wrote, "The occlusion of a coronary artery, in case it does not prove fatal, leads to the destruction of the contractile substance of that portion of the heart which is fed by the affected artery, and afterwards to the formation of so-called myocardic indurations or scar tissue." So he recognized early on that when we occlude these coronary arteries, we end up with dysfunctional myocardium down the road, so to speak. Just interesting, clear back then, if we could have only intervened. So STEMI specialty care system, we've developed a STEMI specialty care system created obviously for treating and transferring the STEMI patient expeditiously. That's contained within Code of California Regulations, Title 22, Division 9, and we now have Chapter 7.1 dedicated to STEMI. The EMSA medical director may also stipulate additional requirements for their local STEMI systems. The system outlines the EMS requirements for diagnosing, treating, and transporting STEMI patients, trying to get patients to the right place at the right time as expeditiously as safely possible. It also describes hospital requirements for STEMI receiving and referring centers. STEMI regulations were initiated and allowed based on Section 2.5 of Health and Safety Code, which allows EMSA to regulate state specialty care systems and hospital designations. STEMI regulations began development in 2011, and that regulatory language was based on recommendations from lots of experts, including AHA, American College of Cardiology, CDPH, and of course, task force input. That task force was aligned by EMSA and included representatives from MDAC, MSAC, CDPH, Public Health, California Hospital Association, Emergency Nurses Association, as mentioned, AHA and American College of Cardiology, but also a Kaiser Health Plan and other subject matter experts were included in this task force. STEMI regulations, as commented briefly, began their gestation, so to speak, in 2011, and then were finally born July 1, 2019 as Chapter 7.1 STEMI Critical Care System, finally approved by the Office of Administrative Law. I want to just show briefly California local EMS agencies. We have 7 multi-county EMS agencies and 23 single county EMS agencies. And we'll just comment quickly on how many have developed and have approved plans. We currently have 22 LEMSAs with an approved STEMI plan at last count. STEMI regulations note any LEMSA may develop and implement a STEMI system of care. That STEMI system of care approval makes its way into the LEMSA's EMS plan and then over to us at EMSA for approval prior to implementation. The LEMSA also submits an annual update of its STEMI system plan as part of its annual EMS plan, including those items typically observed, like QI, goals and objectives, data, etc. COVID-19 did slow down this process, both with respect to STEMI plans and EMS plans in California. Here's a quick roster I won't spend a lot of time on. This shows 22 of 33 LEMSAs have approved STEMI plans. We don't want anybody to be able to recognize counties that may not have met STEMI system criteria yet. So we'll leave that slide so nobody gets any bad press. There are two types of STEMI centers designated by the LEMSAs. Those are STEMI referring hospitals and STEMI receiving centers. The STEMI centers are designated by the LEMSAs based on criteria aligned within STEMI regulations, but also based on additional requirements as set by the LEMSA medical director. Part of the reason we have 33 LEMSAs in California is because EMS delivery in California is so different, with so many different geographic and population-based centers, that we require sort of a special perspective. We're almost, more of a nation than a state. There are currently 147 STEMI centers designated by the LEMSAs in California. The STEMI Technical Advisory Committee was established, as noted previously. EMSA nominated professionals that represent many of the groups mentioned: MDAC, EMSAC, California Hospital Association, other subject matter experts, including hospital STEMI directors and LEMSA specialty care coordinators. This TAC meets 3 to 4 times a year if there's not a COVID pandemic going on, with particular focus on implementation of regs, data system requirements, quality improvement planning for this summit, hopefully not virtual next year, and providing public education for STEMI. Future goals for our STEMI systems include some of the obvious, but improving participation, getting the numbers up, hopefully approaching 33 of 33 LEMSAs in the next couple of years, improving the function of these STEMI systems, improving education, targeting largely public education so that people recognize STEMI, and also increased and improved public participation in CPR. We want to improve data capture and analytics, trying to move towards outcome-based data and more timely access to that data, ultimately making our way into real-time data. And finally, obviously, we want to improve outcomes based on these 4 targeted areas for improvement. That'll conclude my commentary on the STEMI virtual conference here today. Thank you so much for participating, and thank you for having me.